I thought it was an impossible mission, but you managed to end on time, which was great.
Thanks.
And thank you very much for the participation of all. Again, another very interesting panel. We will take up the challenge given by Sandra Silva and looking at this national strategy for sea and try within AED cluster to consolidate and collaborate together so that we can give you a perspective of how to introduce technology and how to understand a little bit better what is available and what can be done. So I think that would be, the timing was excellent for this session. So we will probably be in touch to try to find to contribute to the strategy. So thank you very much all. I think it was very good. The challenges, the products, the services, the requirements. So let's continue this dialogue in the next events and opportunities. Thank you very much to all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So going now then, only 5 minutes behind schedule, which is not too bad. Actually, it's quite good. We will go then to the next panel and the last session from this AED Days, which will be focusing on living labs for drones, urban air mobility, and satellites, developing a national ecosystem to create disruptive new products and services. So I welcome everyone from this new panel also. I think everyone is here on board. So basically the objective is in a certain way for this panel to give a kickoff, which is a cluster initiative to try to create a national network for living labs in terms of establishing platforms to develop, to test, to consolidate the technology in order to create value and to be able to export. So this is just to discuss some initial ideas, try to understand a little bit better, show the audience what is happening. And the objective, again, is not for this to end now, it's just the kickoff for something that has to be developed throughout the next months. So the lineup we thought was first to have an idea of what exactly is a living lab. When I started looking at it, I realized everyone is very familiar with the terminology, but in reality, it can have different formats, it can have different shapes. So I thought it was a good idea just to understand a little better what we are talking about. Then we will have an excellent example of something that is already ongoing in terms of in Canada, and will help us also to show what would we try to aim here and how to leverage this knowledge and this international collaboration to go forward. And then, of course, we have some municipalities represented here, which for what understanding, they are the right partners at the moment because they have problems, they have responsibilities, they are proactive. So it is something that we are very much looking forward to start and continue to work with municipalities. And then finally, a perspective on how to go forward with this, where to get financing, and showing some best case scenarios. I will present each one when the time is for your speech. So the first one will be Cohen Verwoerd from the Living Labs, the European network, which we invited here, and thank you very much for coming, just to give us then an overview what we are talking about and how we can think and how we can engage with this and try to make it a success. So please, the floor is yours. Let's start.
Thank you for the invitation, Rui. I hope you can see my screen. Can you please confirm this for a second?
Just press F5, so that is on slideshow.
Okay, then I will. Yes, yeah. So you see the slideshow, correct? Right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name, as mentioned by Rui, is Koen Vervoort, and I'm the network builder at Enol, the European network of living labs. And I'm here in the impossible mission to explain to you what a living lab is within the time frame of 10 minutes, but I will do my utter best. And of course, whenever anyone has any questions following my presentation, the presentation is in hands of Rui, so please share it, and then everyone can contact me directly afterwards. So, a living lab. As Rui already mentioned, there is a wide variety of types of living labs within all thematic fields possible. So in our definition, a living lab has some common elements and some basic structure, building blocks, which are necessary to be identified as a living. At the time on the left bottom, you will see it's a quadruple helix open innovation system. Quadruple helix, it stands for a multi-actor collaboration between government, industry, academia, mostly citizens or end users, as we call them. Within a living lab, they focus on creating joint value via co-creation and prototyping and iterative testing of these prototyping, and then later ops and the businesses created. The main difference with a living lab compared to other open innovation systems like a fab lab or a makerspace or a test bed, for instance, is the fact that a living lab will try to what we call domesticate technologies into the real life environments of the end users. So it's I always use the example of instead of moving users. And while doing so, we use iterative feedback processes in an agile lean approach with very close and short feedback loops within every step or phase of the life cycle approach. And by life cycle approach, we mean from ideation over co-creation and co-designing, over testing and experimentation until validation. And those are most time the 4 phases in an innovation project. And as I mentioned, we have within our network even a wide variety of different types of living labs, more than 10 areas of work around government and all that kind of stuff. But all of those, although they are very different, they have 6 common elements, which is that the living lab, it acts as an orchestrator. It orchestrates all the interactions between the involved stakeholders and the end users. Of course, it's focused on co-creation and listening to the end user to take his or her feedback forward in the further development of the product or the service. That's active user involvement, multi-stakeholder participation. So it's not only the user which is involved in development. The real-life settings I already mentioned, and multi-method approach is that you adapt the way of collecting feedback to the activity that you're aiming for. Going further, there's a 3-layered approach to a living lab. So at the macro level, you have the organization or the governance model where you create an infrastructure, a data model, all this kind of stuff. And built up on this macro level, you have the meso level in which you will run living lab projects through that life cycle approach, which I already mentioned. And then within all those phases, you have the micro level, which is the interactive activities which you set up. It can be a co-creation, a brainstorm, a field test, an interview, a survey, all that kind of stuff. And which is very essential is that you know what the value is of a living lab. So one of our members, which is IMEC in Belgium, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they have done quite a lot of living lab projects over the last 10 years, actually more than 250. And they have all been making pre and post assessments to their clients. And this is the actual outcome of this. So by the start of a project and then compared to the end, more than 55%, so 57% of those launched to the market. So this is a perfect proof from one of our members that the Living Lab approach can be highly valuable to develop new products and services. Just quickly, because there's no time, but a very other important aspect is that a Living Lab functions most of the time bottom up. So it's based to really listening to the needs of the end users and then start working with them and create the product which they want. What you see here very briefly is a flash bike, which was created as a solution to a problem of dense traffic. They were speeding like crazy, and the local authorities didn't take action. So we created a flash bike, and then all of a sudden, by now the local authorities have bought 500 of those flash bikes to put around the city of Antwerp in this case. Last but not least, and I will end with this slide, so I don't go over time with the 10 minutes. Or thinking about setting up a Living Lab or setting up a Living Lab project, a structured approach for running it is key. So what we noticed over time is that most of the enthusiasts where the rocket is, and they forget the whole preparation phase. So we have generated a general flow for stakeholder and user involvement, and we will be more than happy to explain this more into depth whenever that would be suitable, because doing this would already take us like 3 hours. And then my final slide, what is Enol actually? Well, Enol is a non-profit international association collecting Living Lab members all over the globe. Right? We at the moment have approximately 175 members in different varieties of work, like I already mentioned. And we are here to support them in any way. So whenever you have questions around Enol, just reach out to me as well. And by this, Rui, I will stop my presentation. I don't know, did I meet the time?
Yes, no, it's perfect. Thank you very much, Colin. I think it really launched the idea of what we are talking here. So it's perfect. Of course, as I mentioned in our conversations, this is just the first part of a dialogue. Of course, the objective is to also take advantage of, as you've shown, all the accumulated knowledge you have. And I hope this is, it will be, I hope now, this will be for sure the start of a closer dialogue. And we'll discuss later. We have some more questions. So thank you very much. I think that set up the stage. I will go now to Afzal Suleiman, which working is a professor at IST at Victoria University. He's very much involved in a very interesting ongoing consortium on urban air mobility in Canada, and he will talk a little bit about it in a way to show us that this is not something crazy. This is something that is already being done, and that we have to quickly try to get into pace and develop this type of initiatives. So please, Afzal, go ahead.
Okay. Do you mind giving me control of the screen?
I think you have it. It's not. Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. So can everybody see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Just F5 to be in slide mode.
Yeah, I am in slide mode.
Okay.
So I am in slide mode now.
It's not.
No.
No. Ricardo, can you? Is it okay for the platform?
Yeah, I think let me just share my screen then. Give me a minute. Can you see it now? Okay. Hi, everyone. As Rui mentioned, I'm basically I'm basically in Canada and in Portugal. So we have been discussing some sort of initiatives in Portugal as well. So I thought might bring an initiative that has started the last year in Canada, more specifically in British Columbia. This is Vancouver, the view of Vancouver. I'm more precisely, I live in Victoria, which is just across the water in the Vancouver Island. So Canadian Air Mobility is an initiative that has been basically brought forward. So we have a collaboration between industry, academia, national regulators and research, government and investors. So, and then this consortium has grown now. There are a lot more sort of entities, companies and basically as partners in this initiative. You can see that here, especially on the universities in British Columbia, there are 4 of them: UVic, Simon Fraser, BCIT, and University of British Columbia. So this idea came up saying that, okay, how can we bring a sort of an ecosystem within the Lower Mainland region, so that is there a business case for urban air mobility? So the main the focus of this, or basically what makes up this consortium, is this combination of capabilities and entities that will make possible this consortium to take off and implement this urban air mobility. So the idea is to create a center of innovation, testing and certification sites, scenario and mission operations, and Canadian and international expansion. So the purpose of the Center of Innovation is to foster technology development from SMEs to support viable UAM implementation. This could be part of the universities as well, being involved with that. On the testing and certification is to look at the infrastructure and approval processes for beyond visual line of sight. Identify ideal rural locations for R&D, training and obtaining vehicle testing and certification. So that one, we have 2 flight test sites, Alma, Quebec, and Foremost, Alberta. The Center of Innovation, the idea is to basically locate that somewhere in Vancouver. On the scenario and mission operations is basic purpose is an ecosystem of stakeholders designing urban and regional scenarios and missions and air mobility operations. There's 3 specific business lines that have been identified: air services, cargo, and passenger. And that basically this idea is to implement that between Vancouver, Victoria, and Seattle. We have American representation in this consortium as well. The city of LA, the city of Seattle, and Oregon, they're all involved as what we call this area of Cascadia. And then finally is expansion, basically develop national framework for expansion within the Canadian environment, and then look at partnerships with NASA and the Cascadia corridor. So as we know, in terms of, I will not go into details in 10 minutes, but I just wanted to let you basically know about all of these. There's a plethora of these activities happening all over the world. The last time I heard, there were over 150 initiatives in developing urban air mobility vehicles and activities. The main, like you see it, that the main, I would say, from a research perspective, R&D perspective, is that there is quite limited basically payload on these systems, especially when we are aiming for electric propulsion systems or hybrid electric as well. So this is an Uber concept of what an infrastructure could look like in terms of urban air mobility hub, where basically it will be embedded within a city infrastructure, and the idea is to basically facilitate the movement of people within an urban environment. Definitely there are challenges there. So I want to identify the challenges. Is interoperability standards are needed to facilitate and reduce time to market for aircraft manufacturers. Adequate capital and venture investment are definitely required for development and commercialization. Most important is the infrastructure investment as well. There are some helipads spread around the city of Vancouver and Victoria and also Seattle. And the goal is to identify those first and to see if they can be repurposed and create new vertiports within the urban environment. There's definitely a sufficient market demand has to be identified, and at the moment there is in British Columbia because before COVID-19 hit, there was a lot of activity, commercial, industrial, and consumer activity within these three cities. The other one is public acceptance of these new systems and services. Safety, mobility, cost effectiveness, and affordability are definitely in everyone's mind. And finally is privacy and environmental impacts. Noise and pollution will be definitely a defining factor here. So this is just a potential sort of, you can see the routes that have been created between Vancouver, Victoria, and Seattle. There is a lot of commercial and tourism and passenger activity currently between these three cities. And the idea is how do we sort of capitalize on this? At the moment, we have one of the world's largest scheduled helicopter airline, which is Helijet. It is located in Vancouver and Victoria. They basically carry over 2.5 million passengers every year. I believe it's a passenger board. I believe this is the full number, if I tend to be corrected there. Operating over 300 weekly urban flights and community-minded, and it has essentially the mode of transportation that I usually take when I go from Victoria to Vancouver as well. So the idea is to create this is a concept that we created for Helijet between these three cities. So we did a study with my colleagues at IST. We did a study on the viability of these systems in an urban environment. So we looked at environmental sustainability of these urban air mobility systems. And we looked at benefits of challenges. Benefits is definitely a faster way to travel. The challenges is essentially flight safety, integration and reliability, and basically clean green propulsion systems. And noise is definitely an issue, and infrastructure building is another one. On the electric flight, you must have heard that one of the first flights that were done on an electric commercial sort of aircraft was Harbour Air, right here located in Victoria. And last year, I think it was early this year, if I'm not mistaken, they did their first maiden flight on a full electric aircraft. Design benefits is more efficient and reliable propulsive systems, no pollutant emissions, lower noise, and lower operating maintenance costs. But definitely challenges are the battery technology management and energy resources are definitely a bottleneck. We carried out a study on these systems. Basically, we looked at all propulsive systems. We looked at biofuels, and we also looked at the availability of these biofuels. And we just tried to look at it within a system of systems approach that tried to quantify the cost and the environmental footprint of these basic fuels and energy sources in a study. So we looked at the specific energy density compared between lithium ion, lithium sulfur, kerosene, and then all the biofuels, especially one of them is from the wheat straw. And there's a comparability between the biofuels within a 1% margin. So we identified three types of aircraft for urban air mobility: Aurora Boeing personal air vehicle, the Joby Aviation, which is a tilt rotor, and the last one was the Airbus Vahana, which is a tilt wing. So we have lift and cruise, tilt rotor, and tilt wing, and we did a study of these three. I will not go into the details here for 10 minutes. I think so I'll just go to my closing remarks. And so this Canadian Air Mobility Initiative, the idea is to create an ecosystem for the development of urban air transportation in British Columbia. We have developed a multidisciplinary computational framework to study this conceptually study these different designs. We looked at sustainability metrics and pollutant and noise emissions. And one of the conclusions was that for all electric air vehicles, for this flight segment is up to 3 people and 224 nautical miles. We found that noise is definitely found to limit the payload capacity. And biofuels show a promise for the segment. Basically, the emissions are lower than conventional fuel, and when the electric grid does not rely mostly on renewable sources. Okay, so this is just another basically overview of Vancouver with a concept aircraft. And I think that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afzal. I think it was an excellent way to show exactly what is already being done, and all those studies, all those advancements made possible because exactly a group of people, of regulatory bodies, of agencies, of municipalities all get together and were able to create the right context to develop that technology, which is something, of course, we want to go forward with. So this we just pick up. I mean, we don't have that much time, so maybe Afzal just unshare so that we get everyone on the screen. Thank you. Yeah. We just shown one of the examples. Of course, we are looking at living labs within the AED cluster. We're very much focused on our own technology. So our main focus is on urban air mobility, on drones and our satellite downstream applications. This is an example of something that is already been done. Maybe even easier is thinking about drones and satellite downstream applications. So I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of things to think about and try to develop. We have seen yesterday. So this agreement we are also putting forward with the Câmara Municipal de Oeiras, namely with the creation of a competence center, which has already been defined at urban air mobility will be one of the main topics that we will try to approach in close collaboration with Canada. So maybe I pass now to João Barreira Martins, the head of department at the municipality Oeiras. As I mentioned, I mean, for us, municipalities are the main actors that we want to be engaged. You know, you had during these last years, the role of responsibilities they were attributed to municipality has grown. Of course, for sure, you have a lot of challenges within diverse areas where these technologies can help. So maybe just have a first impression of what you think of these types of initiatives. It is something that you already have running within your municipality. This is something that you feel that can help you solving some of the problems that you have, and how do you see this possible action going forward?
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everyone. First of all, let me thank the organization of this event to the invitation for stay this present. The second one, I want to apologize in advance for anything that may go less well with my participation, but I'm sick. I'm at home sick, and I'm not very well. Well, about your question, Rui Santos, yes. In Oeiras, we are familiar with this type of initiatives. Personally, I'm aware with initiatives in several countries, in particular in Amsterdam. But unfortunately, in Oeiras, we are taking the first steps, but sustained step. Just yesterday, what you said, a memorandum of understanding assigned with several institutions from Oeiras related to technology research and education, which aims to transform Oeiras into an international laboratory for the aerospace and defense industries. Oeiras is a technological territory, but the same cannot be said to the municipality. The years prior to the entry of the current executive are years of disinvestment in technology areas. So the last 3 years we are recovered the past years. Difficult to recover considering the speed that technology area change. But in the end of the day, we need to stay very positive. The fact we are started at now almost from the scratch. But from the scratch, we can know the best practice and the best case of success and use the knowledge to do better. So we are in the beginning, but the perspective is very good because we are learning everything of the other countries, other cities, other partners are doing in that matter.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jose. Maybe extend the same, get the same perspective from Miguel Moreira, which is a consultant for the strategy at the municipality of Ponte Sor. I think the important thing and is to have a diversified mix, no? Because Oeiras is a highly density populated area. Ponte Sor is it's lower populated, so for sure. Some common challenges, but also very other additional different challenges. So it's have to have your perspective in terms of how do you see Ponte Sor engaging in this type of activity, if you have something already ongoing, and if you see this is something that could be of interest.
So, Rui, thank you very much, and thank you to AED for inviting Ponte Sor to be part of this session. Let me briefly remind what have been our recent work in aerospace I would say in the last 5 years. We are a municipality that owns and runs a municipal airfield, which is actually the largest non-international airport in Portugal and the best equipped. And so our focus has been to really attract new businesses, new initiatives, first towards the airfield, and then also to the industrial area of Ponte Sor, which, as Rui mentioned, Ponte Sor is a very low density region, but we operate in a very large territory of 840 square kilometers. So that in itself is a challenge. And but of course we seek to develop the region, to contribute to the country. And so, as I said, we operate the airfields, we attract new investments. We've been very active in the last 5 years or so, and even the last 2. Just for you to have an idea, we invested something like 11 million euros in the last 2 years. That you will see the result from this in new infrastructure, and we saw from the last presentation how this is critical for projects like these ones, like Living Labs, but not only those. And so we are extending capacity to allocate new companies, to allocate R&D institutions, exactly to create critical mass, because as you know, the interior of mainland Portugal is very low density. We need to attract talent, to attract skills. And in the end, from the municipality point of view, ultimately, this implies 2 things which we consider crucial for Ponte Sor. Of course, economic diversity and social change. And in a digital new era, I think we believe this is the way to go. We have been doing some of these steps towards this notion of Living Lab without having the macro aspect of the Living Lab. So we've been playing on smaller scale initiatives, as I said. And we, of course, we can find solutions for several challenges of the interior of mainland Portugal, of course. From Ponte Sor, obviously energy efficiency, forest management, agriculture, land use planning, because you have a huge territory, the environment, and so on. But still, we have a demographic challenge. And here again, we've been partnering in attracting young people and young talent to the region through higher education institutions and through the companies, because in the end, you cannot do it without qualified people. We think it's an excellent opportunity to have a national framework for a Living Lab in these fields, drones, satellites, and the technologies and the services and products that can arise from that. And as I said, as a public institution, we want to see the result of that, and we want to have social change in the region. And the technological aspect of it is crucial for us. The interior of Portugal is old in terms of demographics, and we need to change that, of course. So, and just to give you an example of how attractive the rural areas can be, we were already approached by an international consortium seeking to test heavy-duty drones. And by heavy-duty, I mean drones capable of transporting 1 ton to 40-ton containers. So a completely new way of cargo industry transportation. And so this is just an example of the opportunities that are there. And so, of course, from the Ponsor point of view, we are totally open. We actually urge the industry to reach out with us. As I said, we are expanding new capabilities, not only hangars at the airfield. We are having 3 new hangars within 2 years, but also a complete renewed industrial installation with 30,000 plus square meters, exactly to allocate to companies, to R&D institutions, to really create, and totally, by the way, totally focus on aerospace, because that will be the niche for this new, the new project. This is basically a conversion from the old automotive business that was run there through General Electric, and it is now being adapted to serve the industry, basically. So totally focused on this idea, and you, of course, you can count on Ponsor to continue to be very, very proactive, because as Suleiman said, the infrastructure is critical, and we as a public entity, we can help by providing the infrastructure, which is always huge investment, to allocate the businesses and the different projects.
Perfect, Miguel. Excellent perspective, and it's always very good to hear enthusiastic perspectives in terms of what can be done, and that's exactly what we need to go forward. So maybe I will go around, but we have here also with us Eurico Neves, CEO of the Inova Mais. They have been very much involved in this type of projects, both national and international. And so we invited them to maybe give us a glimpse, because all of this, we have to have the right mindset, we have to collaborate, but then, as Cohen also mentioned, there's a big effort in trying to set up the right structure so that these things work and have success. So that cannot be underestimated. So maybe Eurico Neves can help us set the way and try to understand and look at case studies from international partners also, and for us to understand how could we try to go forward with this. Eurico.
Thank you, Rui. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation as well to be present in here. So as you said, and thanks for the introduction, I'm the founder of Inova, and we are a private innovation agency promoting and supporting innovative projects. We've been quite active in the field of aviation and have promoted and coordinated a few projects, namely at European level, not directly in research, but more on capturing talents for the aviation sector amongst young people, amongst women and other groups which are sometimes not naturally attracted. So both under Horizon 2020, Erasmus and other programs. So it's quite a few. I was looking at it the other day, and it's quite a few projects that we already have in this field. We are not absolute experts in the sector, but it's really a sector where we have worked quite a lot. And myself, yesterday I started making my course as a private pilot and started with the theory classes. So I'm trying to become an insider in this sector as well. Now let's see if I can make it. It's not going to be easy, but it's certainly a sector that I like a lot. Yes, I think there's a very good thing for you. It's we are certainly talking about new things. There's certainly talking about innovation when we see the presentation about Vancouver and the future that they're trying to design there in terms of urban air mobility and new electrical airplanes. It's really innovative. And the good thing is that, public powers at European level, the European Commission, also at national level, they like and they promote innovation. So if you are able to come up with a coherent proposal, which is innovative, which is capable of fostering change, it can very well happen that you can get the right support. which is an investment because it will produce wealth and development on its own. The European Commission in particular, some years ago, it was very much focused on regions. It was all about regional policy. In the most recent years, it has been quite a lot about cities. And then within cities, it's more and more about ecosystems. So there are quite a lot of support for ecosystems, and especially ecosystems in innovative areas. So there are certainly opportunities to exploit, and there are opportunities to exploit in terms of existing infrastructures, in terms of funding, and in terms of good examples and possible collaborations that you can have with other living labs. Living labs, as we have seen from the first presentation from Con, it's all about open innovation. So I think the more open, the better. So they should also be open to working with other living labs and with other existing infrastructures. So there are quite a few already active in Europe. For instance, the Joint Research Center from the European Commission, they have pilot living labs, and some of them, both in Ispra and in Petten in the Netherlands, they have been active in this area, and they have been supporting, for instance, projects on automated droids for testing real delivery scenarios for indoor and outdoor. So that's something that for sure, as soon as first initiatives started to appear, I think it would be good to develop collaboration with them, as for instance with the Galileo Living Lab Prize for developers and users for downstream services. That's more opportunities to exploit. And then if something starts to develop hard collaboration between cities, between developers, between companies, which could lead to a potential ecosystem, then there are certainly funding opportunities to be exploited. And for instance, in the new framework program of the European Commission, which will start now, Horizon Europe, which will replace the current H2020, which is now coming to the end of its present cycle of 7 years. The first calls will close in January. It's about the Green Deal, and quite a few of them, they concern areas which could be relevant for ecosystems in this area. There is, for instance, an open call, Green Deal Call 1.3, which is for innovation packages for transformational adaptation of European region and communities, which specifically calls for making use of operational climate services like satellite downstream services, Copernicus climate change services, energy management services, and others. So there are open calls right now, which can be used by consortium, which would like to develop infrastructures and ecosystems in this area. If we think more in the longer term, if we think things like urban air services, there are programs in Europe like the Urban Innovation Actions. It's now coming to an end, but it's going to be replaced by a new program, which is really asking for cities to come out with out-of-the-box, really innovative approaches to handle problems like mobility, and air mobility could certainly be a solution there. We are talking about 5 million euros projects for one city, for a consortium, for an ecosystem around one city that comes up with a really out-of-the-box solution. And it's difficult to be more out of the box than urban air mobility, to face some of the problems that cities today are facing in terms of mobility and sustainability and others. So at European level, for sure, urban innovative actions at the smaller scale, Urbact, which helps network of cities addressing new problems, could also be used to fund ecosystems in this area. Horizon Europe calls, for sure, pushing for collaboration between companies, between cities, between research providers, universities, and others, could be used to start developing concrete projects that should be very close to the market. We think about European funding for research. It's not anymore for research, it's for innovation. It's more for public procurement of innovative solutions, like the ones we've seen in the previous presentations than pure research. So they are there to be used. Also, in terms of national funding, we have the mobilizing projects, which could be used, again, involving companies and cities and research providers. We have right now, closing in a couple of days, but we have this EEA grants for living labs for climate change mitigation, which again, it's opened the call now for big cities. Oeiras, it's an eligible city and it's probably preparing things there, but actions like this one, so promoting ecosystems for urban air mobility, for satellite downstream, for for drone operation could certainly fit into this call. So there are quite a few instruments, both at European level and national level. What I think it's necessary, it's really to start moving things around, developing the partnerships, putting a business model together, inviting people, creating momentum, opening collaborations with the existing infrastructures like the Joint Research Center, the Galileo Living Labs Prize, looking at good examples like Canada, for sure, like the one in the Netherlands, where there has been a recent agreement between the Royal Schiphol Group, so that has all the main airports in the Netherlands, and Delft University of Technology, to really rethink the way that airports operate and try to use them as really hubs, innovative hubs for new ecosystems of new services that may develop there. So there are plenty of best practices for inspiration. There are infrastructures that can be used already to start motivating innovative projects from companies, from startups. And then there are funds available, some of them already now with deadlines in January, that can be used to start developing things. So the infrastructure is there. I think it's for the agents, for the people in the field to start using them. And we will, of course, very interested in this and very happy to be a part of this if we may. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ulrich, for that perspective. I think that is, as you mentioned, a very important part of this initiative. So definitely something that we will continue our dialogue. So maybe now just a question to Guowen. I don't know if you're still with us.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
So I know, do you think, I mean, from your experience in terms of living labs, I think one of the big catches for municipalities in terms of setting up living labs is about attracting players, attracting players to come to those regions and to having the right conditions to develop technology, that it is a way to attract people and to attract companies. That dynamics is something that you see within the living labs, or what is your perspective on that?
Most definitely. Yeah, so certainly in a city environment, additionally valuable because it offers a real test bed to those companies to try out their solutions with the local stakeholders, and to get directly involved from the start with the decision makers around the solutions which they are creating. By the way, I wanted to add to the explanation of Mr. Neves, the GRC which he was mentioning is literally leading our mobility cluster in Enol, which we are starting actually this month. So we are starting a cluster around mobility. We don't have air mobility yet, but what is not here we can still add. So GRC is involved in this. But coming back, the involvement of stakeholders within an ecosystem is of course crucial, and then a living lab is even more than maybe other open innovation systems about expectation management, because you take a very agile and iterative approach. So you have to communicate real clear to all the involved stakeholders on their own level. So what the living lab is actually has proven to be good in, then let's say, is translating languages from all different types of stakeholders into a common understandable language for the whole ecosystem, if you know what I'm saying now. Because if you go with the explanation of our Canadian friend, which I forgot the name, Suleiman, and you go to my mother, she won't understand a word what you just said. So it's a matter of transposing and connecting the stakeholders within that ecosystem, in which a living lab focuses very strongly on.
Okay, thank you very much, Cohen. So maybe just final questions to Axel. Are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, just, I mean, based on your experience, you have international experience. You're involved in the consortiums in Vancouver. Do you think we have the right mindset and the capability to do something similar here? I mean, what is your perspective, knowing both both worlds, and how do you think that is manageable?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, because I understand both environments, both in Canada and in Portugal, because I'm involved in both of them. So if I want to basically compare the two, I mean, there is one thing that is common to anywhere, and like even the leading labs that Colin Herbert mentioned, is essentially it has to be a grassroots sort of, in the sense like you have to start with a very solid foundation for these activities. So from my perspective, my experience, and as you know as well, that I've created the Center for Aerospace Research here in Victoria, is it is relatively been sort of sustainable. And because I sort of work, I mean, especially being in academia, I work with students, and we have a group of engineers, and we do projects with Boeing and with Bombardier and with Embraer and so on. So the question comes is that if we want to set up something similar in Portugal, and we've been in talks about doing it in collaboration with the Câmara Municipal de Oeiras and Técnico, is basically create this infrastructure where we can start developing the technology and then have like a bottom push rather than just a top pull type of sort of activity, where if it's only a top pull activity, then there is nothing at the foundation level, and then things become not very sustainable over the long run. So, so I mean, I have talked to the president of IST as well last week, and he is very supportive of this initiative. He said that he's anything that he can do, he's 100% behind this initiative. So it's just a matter of figuring out how can we basically create a sustainable. I prefer, in my experiences, I prefer to create smaller things, but they are sustainable over the long run, rather than basically have like a big thing starting and then suddenly we find that it's very difficult to sustain over the long run. So that's sustainability is the key to these activities. It's I mean, basically I would say that 10% of the effort is creating these ecosystems and living labs and laboratories, and I've talked about at the university level and even at the government level. But I would say that 90% of effort is that how do we devise a plan for sustainability over the long run in order to be successful and have some effect, have some contribution to the society as a whole.
I totally agree. Every living lab should start small and feasible and tangible and within a group, and then scale up to larger phases. So.
Excellent. So I think we are all in agreement. I think the stage is set. I think now it's a question of trying to begin to consolidate a little bit better what we are discussing. And of course, the municipalities, the challenge is to make an effort to try to understand exactly what are the main challenges that have to be tackled, because as we mentioned, the objective here is not to develop technology per se, but to develop technology within an environment with the final user that can have feedback in terms of really creating added value products and service. So we need to understand where are the challenges and how we can tackle them. I don't know if Jose or Miguel want to say some last words regarding this before we close.
Jose, you want to go first?
You're muted. Yeah. You're muted, Jose. No.
Okay.
Okay, now we can listen.
Oh.
Unmute, and now with the video is off, maybe put it on.
Okay. Hello? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't have image.
Just go ahead. It's okay.
Okay. Well, in conclusion, well, municipalities don't have neither the skills nor the capacity to develop projects in more advanced technology areas. Whenever, in my opinion, from a point of view, the municipalities have the obligation to seek the most innovative and disruptive solutions for efficient territory management, always seeking to improve the quality of life of your citizens. The research for technology solutions cannot be limited to the state of the art, but it should also search the companies and partners to develop innovate projects to invest in disruptive technologies. The management of a territory is a quite complex, so require a transversal view, okay? In my opinion, the municipalities are responsible to provoking companies, research and development centers, universities, so that they have a reason to develop projects, invest in technology and invest in innovations, okay? Giving the right conditions for the research to obtain their fruits without being conditioned by casuistic and strategic free approach. The municipality of Oeiras is an eminently urban municipality with a territory of 43 square kilometers, relatively compact, with a strong business ecosystem in the areas of innovation, science, and technology. And it is guaranteed that we will have all interest not in participating, but to promote innovation initiatives, especially in the technology and infrastructural information system or system to support the governance of this territory. I think at this point, technology from the aerospace and defense fields assume particular importance due to the current capability, especially due to large and predictable future capabilities. Okay, and that's all.
Thank you very much. Miguel, any final words?
Yeah, just as a closing remark, I totally agree with what was said about doing it step by step, starting small, then going a bottom-up approach. Of course, we have, as I said, with our experience towards the aerospace component due to the airfield, that has exactly been our approach to not, go into two larger projects that then we as a municipality could not handle. So we totally agree with that. And of course, the job for the municipalities is to incite, to tease, to provoke in a good way the businesses and to create an atmosphere, a common mindset in benefit of the territory, of course. But we must do that in a very proactive way. Just a final example, the nearest higher education institution close to Ponsor is at 90 kilometers away. But in spite of that, we have higher education degrees running right now at the airfield in Ponsor. Why? Because we reached out to higher education institution, in this case to Polytechnic Setúbal, and that's what we should foster ever more to create critical mass. And it's very difficult because we are very low density region, but we cannot stop that effort. So steady, small steps, but always pushing forward, and we need to keep doing this. Otherwise, we will fail as a community.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think it's clear that is something that we all agree upon, which is great. So I think it's just a question of, as mentioned earlier on, to start working a little bit more together and try to push forward this agenda, which is ambitious, but of course, I think completely critical for the development of capabilities within Portugal. So I think that closes the sections. We are already a little bit behind time, but we also started 5 minutes, so I think it was an impeccable management for this panel. I thank you all for coming, and of course we will keep this dialogue from now on and try to develop something more concrete. And I count with all of you to help us achieve exactly that. So thank you very much to all, and we will keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes. So.